All right, so let's go ahead and let's make these files in Photoshop here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this fairly large. I'm going to make it 400, 400. And we're going to make a cool looking text circle. So I'm going to add a new layer, delete the background here, okay? And within here, all we're going to do is we're going to make a color. And let's pick the color to be exactly 250 by 250 by 250. Now remember, the top is 255. So this is an off-white. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add in the square here, or the rectangle tool. And all we're going to do is we're just going to add in some rectangles here. All right. Now this thing gets kind of annoying, but that's all we're going to do. Now, when you make a text circle, okay, and maybe I'll just zoom out just a bit. And when you make a text circle, what happens here is that, and I can probably just move the properties over here so that it won't move up again. The smaller the squares, the more detailed it will be. And in a game like this, and a text circle like this, you don't want it to be too, you don't want it to be too, well, kind of too detailed. So we'll just maybe do that here. And you're probably wondering, well, that is not going to look good. Well, just hear me out here. So let's rasterize these layers. And then once you're done, we will merge layers. Okay. And then we're going to go to filter. And then we're going to go distort polar coordinates. Okay. And you can see here that that is our text circle. Now, sometimes you need to do it again. I'm not too fond of this text circle, so I'm just going to simply delete it, and we're going to do that over again. And it can take a couple times, and this is like more of a random, you kind of just add in these little items here, and you can experiment with how much or how little you want of these. And it's a really cool way to make graphics, in my opinion. So something like that. And if you want to, so we'll again, we can kind of just go merge visible. And if you really want to, we can kind of always take out, which is always my favorite, you can take out something too. And then we're going to go to filter, distort, polar coordinates. And that's looking more like a text circle that I would like to use. Okay, so there we go. We now have a text circle, and if we want to test this out, okay, if we want to test this out, we can always, for example, switch this around and set this, or switch it. Looks like, and we can kind of set it to a black here, push G, make sure the G is the paint can, and you can see how that looks. And that looks pretty good. And keep in mind, it's probably going to look more like that on the screen. So that looks pretty good. And in fact, the background was orange, like kind of a deep orange. So maybe we can just test that. You know, yeah, I think that's looking pretty good. So there is our text circle. Let's go to File, New, and we're going to again make this bigger than we need it to be. Okay, so we'll maybe make this, yeah, I think 400 is probably good, and 40, and that is the right size. But let's go to Image, Rotation, Clockwise, and then I'm actually just going to change the image size, and we're going to go to Pixels, and in 40 I'm actually going to make it 30. Okay, there we go. Let's add in a new layer, and we're going to add in a color here, which will be 50, 50, and 50. And the 0.2 that we added in Xcode is very close. If not, we can always add in extra items here. But let's go and let's take the pen tool, and you can just push P for pen. Okay, and all we're going to do is we're just going to move it here and back. And if you make a mistake, just want to move it here. And generally for this kind of stuff, I actually use Illustrator here for this, but we're just going to move it here. And if you make a few mistakes, you can edit go step backwards, step backwards and step backwards. So we want this like right in the middle. I think that's pretty close. Yeah, and then we'll add it in here. And then we'll do, we can do fill path, or we can do stroke path with a pencil. And what we'll do is we'll add in the G key, and there you go. And there's roughly your spike. Okay. So again, it's going to be fairly small. It's going to be something like this. So for the most part, that's what we need to do. In the next tutorial, we'll export this and put it into Xcode. All right. This includes the tutorial.